Hi everyone, welcome to Colors of Cariboo. I'm your host Rohan.
And I'm Lucille.
We have a very special podcast episode planned for you today. It's a little bit different than what we've normally done, and so we're not going to spend too much time on this intro with us here, but we're rather going to bring back something that was from the first season. So we are going to be interviewing each other today, so grab a chair, grab a drink,
and let's get started.
Welcome to Colors of Cariboo.
Stories of wild creativity.
Yeah. Today's episode was filmed and recorded on the traditional, unceded territory of the Secwepemc peoples, specifically the Tohokum, or Williams Lake First Nations Band, and the Hatzel, or Soda Creek Band. We've got a little bit of a different episode planned for today. So we've been doing this for 2 years now. We're on our second season, and we decided that, we haven't actually had a chance to talk about ourselves yet. So we figured that for our final episode of season 2, it's kind of a chance for us to talk a little bit about our experiences with the podcast, our own experiences as creators and artists, and all of the stuff behind the scenes a little bit. So we are in our house. It is a lovely day. We have grandma looking after our little ones. So if you might hear the occasional screech or scream, that's just the life of a parent. As
maybe a bark in the background too.
Oh yeah, but yes. So, let's get started. So, Lucille, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, okay. Such a broad question.
I'm cheating. I'm still playing the host, so I'm going to ask the questions to begin with.
All right. I'm only sort of the host. My brain goes back to so I was born in Winnipeg 30 years ago. No. I grew up in, for sure, a musical household. My mom was always very much the creative artist. As we know, she loves to sing all the time. My dad was far less trained, but always had his little songs that he was making up for kids. So I grew up surrounded by it, reaching up to play the piano when I was first walking and could reach and just have my hands way above my head. I grew up doing lots of music, mostly kind of started with violin and then switched to piano, and high school in band played the flute and added anything that I could, and also did a lot of drama in school mostly, which is also where we met when we were teenagers. It's something that's always been there and kind of been a little bit more background. I guess I don't really give myself credit for the fact that I have half a creative writing degree, but that was a thing that I used to do as well. It definitely doesn't play in quite as much anymore. Music's been more the through line. And then I also went to school to become a teacher, so a different type of performing where you are on all day with students. And now mostly I entertain a 2-year-old.
And a husband as well. So.
Yes.
So you've come from a very musical background. You kind of and you've kept that up currently, right?
Yeah. So I did. Well, I guess this is one of the ways that the podcast in some ways has influenced me. I did Royal Conservatory piano until grade 8 when I was about 15 years old. And then I stopped doing lessons because it was left more room for theater, but I always kept playing. And this year, well, I guess, yeah, at the beginning of this year, I went back and started doing piano lessons again after 17 years and discovered hadn't lost much, which my teacher was shocked about, that I had kept it going. So
It's not like you've never stopped playing piano.
well, exactly. I've always kept going. Piano's been the most consistent instrument, and then voice as well, that I always forget to consider.
Yeah, voice is a very important instrument. It is an instrument. So
yeah.
vocalists tell ourselves to make ourselves feel better.
Yes. Yes. And I think it's been interesting, like, especially with the podcast, like, I always struggle with imposter syndrome. I don't necessarily consider myself an artist necessarily, even though I do different forms of art. But even in teaching, I remember one of the first shows I was helping, kind of assistant directing, I just kind of stepped in and my friend asked me to take notes. And at the end of a rehearsal, I went, okay, here is all of my notes to the kids. And went, oh, I have skills. Oh, I actually do have some idea what I'm doing. And you have like a parent comes up afterwards and goes like, wow, like that takes an eye for like you actually do know what you're doing. But kind of always felt like a jack of all trades, master of none.
Just, I mean, there's nothing to be wrong with that. That's kind of, I think a lot of artists end up having to take a part of that. And that's like, if that description is to be applied anywhere, it's going to be applied to this podcast.
Yes.
You have been such a support you run the cameras behind the scenes. You help run the audio. You do run the social media. So you're always constantly doing photography. You're always constantly doing media, things like that. When we had the premiere, you were the one who did the majority of all of that work because I was still working full time. And there's just, so you've put on a lot of different hats with this project alone.
Yes.
And unfortunately, we weren't able to get you for music aspect of that stuff, the stuff that you might feel more comfortable in, but but like this experience for you, how would you say it's been?
Oh, it's been incredible. And I also do just like want to give you such kudos and credit, because like when we first got the approval for the podcast, we would be talking to people before we'd started filming, and it was your podcast, and my role before we'd filmed or anything was more of a like, okay, I free up enough space at home so that outside of working full time, you can also take on the podcast. And very soon after those first conversations, I remember driving home and you going like, I don't want this to just be my thing. Like, this needs to be our thing. And I felt so validated in that, but it was so nice to get to come along and be a part of it, and not like, instead we were a team and we were working on it together. Even though you are the project lead, it is primarily yours, but I don't feel like a podcast widow that way. That like, yes, I still do cover a lot of the home front to free you up to do editing and stuff, but I actually do get to play a significant role in this season. It's been even more than last season because our daughter and our life has allowed for me to be there instead of helping set up, strap a baby to me, leave to keep her quiet, come back, hope she doesn't make too much noise as you finish up. But yeah, just getting to become friends with all of these artists in the community. Like, we're so fortunate to have such rich community.
Yeah.
And now, whether I am with you or without you, people know who I am as well, and they come to see me and visit and talk about the podcast. And
I think more people talk to you about it than me, but then again, I just kind of duck my head and cover my shoulders as I'm going outside. I don't want anybody to see me.
Yeah, I remember it felt so surreal being at Station House one time, and I don't think we had released anything yet. And Devana came up to me and she was like, "Hi, Lucille, I just wanted to say that I love the work that you and Rohan are doing with the podcast." And I was like, somebody like recognized me. And then she's introducing me to the artist that happened to be there for the gallery that was on. And yeah, it's neat to get to be a part of everything.
Well, it definitely has kicked us into a bit more of like community involvement. Like, as you're saying, people are coming and talking to us. People are coming up and giving suggestions, saying, "Oh, I like this episode, I like that," and like the work that's being done here is like it. I feel like it is appreciated by the community.
Absolutely.
Even if it does sometimes feel like it's a very small impact, but that's just the nature of these kind of programs, especially when you're starting up. You don't have a million followers out the gate there, and you kind of like, it's with a program like this, you kind of just have to get boots on the ground and just keep going and going and going.
Yeah, and I think we've also had a balanced approach to how we measure success. Like, I think even though you might have dreams of how far your reach will be, what your viewership will be, we've found our success far less in like, here's the number of views that we got, and more in like, wow, we created this thing and connected with these artists and this person to like just that small individual level, and the reach can just keep living on. The podcast can keep being viewed forever. Like, we won't know in the next 5 years how far it actually could reach.
Yeah. I mean, I'm mostly just happy that we get these out.
Yes.
That they get done and that's it. And after that, that's like, okay, the world can do with it what they want.
Yeah.
So with the podcast, what have been some of the challenges that you faced?
Like, there's definitely been some learning curves of like, especially the social media, going, okay, how do we get engagement? How much time do I actually spend on creating this content and getting an eye for things? And there definitely was a little bit of an element of going beyond myself as we were doing the premiere last year and like reaching out to all of these people to try and like, here's a press release. Do you want to talk about the podcast? We've had our own life challenges that have happened through it at the same time too. I think it's just finding that balance of the podcast goes on, but also the podcast gives life. We filmed an episode last year the day after my dad's funeral, and it was so good, and it was exactly what we needed that day. Like, yeah, we've lived some hard things, but it's been a gift through it all too.
Yeah.
Even if, it takes time for sure.
Yes, it does.
It takes a lot of time, but yeah, it's worth it.
Yeah. Time, energy, and I like, and when it comes to like, because one of the big things about the podcast is that you do all of the back end stuff. And so you don't often get a chance to be the front face. You're not your mug isn't the one that's getting getting posted online with like a little what was the one?
Got no experience.
Yeah, that was the one we had. There was something getting put out for some of the advertisement, and it was a picture of myself and one of our guests, and it was just the Instagram reel, and it just had us, and it said no experience ? Which is great. I love the advertising, but it definitely is like, yes, no, there is no experience here. I do not know what I'm doing here, which was, I think, that was a lot of what we've both been dealing with, is that, this is a project that neither of us have really had any kind of experience in at all.
Yeah.
Like, we've just been jumping as best we can, and I've got 1,000 metaphors in my head, and I'm just like throwing spaghetti at the wall and just like jumping through all these hoops, just everything.
Build the plane while you fly it.
Basically, yeah. No, we fell off the cliff with a bunch of tin and an engine, and we're trying to build it as we're going down.
Yeah.
So
now do you want to wait until later, or would you like me to ask you now about your history with art and things so that people get to hear your story as well?
I mean, now is probably as good as a time as any. So, so I was born in the Williams Lake area. I was, my family had a farm that my grandparents bought after the war. I was born and raised there, and I've always kind of been involved in like music and in in especially performing arts and theater. It's a little bit difficult to get into the main hub of town. We're about 30-40 minutes outside of town, and so and yeah, didn't have a ton of money growing up, so it meant that a lot of sports and a lot of extracurricular activities weren't really in the cards for us, which was perfectly fine. I am not a sports person. Other people can do the sports ball. I am happy to. I mean, I barely even watch it as it is, but we did. Yeah, I grew up doing choir. I grew up doing a lot of theater when I was younger, and then kind of got into that. That was a big part of my life going into high school. There was like high school wasn't easy for me, as it is not easy for a lot of people, and theater and the arts were a big save for that. And I figured out very early in high school that I had a couple of career paths that I was going to go on. They are very wild. Yes, performing and acting was one of the paths. The other the other two paths were a veterinarian and a marine biologist specializing in sea turtles. Yeah, no, I do not have the grades to do the latter two, and I just kind of had a love for the first one, and so after high school, I ended up I did a year of university in the local university here to get a couple of credits under my belt, and then I ended up going to Saskatoon and went to the University of Saskatchewan for the and ended up graduating 4 years later with a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Theater. And after that, I ended up also applying and being a part of the Globe Conservatory program at the Regina Globe Theater. So their big theater, which was a 6-month intensive with some of the best and most interesting professors and actors and theater educators in Canada here. And yeah, after that, I had a decent little career there for a few years. I did shows in Saskatoon. I did multiple puppet tours across Alberta and Saskatchewan. I also did a couple of professional shows here and there, and then I worked in Barkerville, BC. I moved back home. For those of you who don't know what Barkerville is, it's a historic gold rush town from the 1860s. That's about, if you're in Williams Lake, it's about 2.5 hours north of us here, 2.5, 3, something like that. The long drive. I worked there for about 3 years, and then I left there, did another puppet tour back in Saskatoon there, and then kind of took a step back from everything, and then COVID hit, and COVID was a terrible time for any theater entertainers, and that was when I was just looking to get back into the industry. And then I decided after COVID, no, I'm not gonna do that right now. So, and that's been more or less what I'd been doing for the last little while, and mostly concentrating on our acting, performing, doing some writing, as well as teaching myself guitar, doing music. I was always a vocalist, as you know, so, and that's kind of like how we met, because we did musicals together, and like when I was done high school, you were still in there, so and that was when we first met, so back in when we were young and carefree, and the world wasn't as crazy. I mean, it was probably just as crazy. It didn't seem as crazy back then.
No, it did not.
That's kind of my experiences. And then this was kind of, the first foray back into the artistic world after a bit of an hiatus there.
And how has that been to kind of dip your toe back in?
It's different. Podcasting is not something that I ever really thought that I would get into. I tried a little bit. My friend who actually was the reason I got into this podcast, because he was working on a documentary with the StoryHive program. Hi, Vernon. So he was the one that got me, who suggested this to me, because we tried to get something off the ground and just couldn't work. It's a different beast. I'm not going to lie and say that it has been like the big surging inferno that I thought, or that I hoped that it might have turned into, but it's a different experience. And I think the majority that I've gotten out of it has been just being able to see that we're capable of having more artists and more performers in this small area of the world, and
Yeah.
that people can live and survive, because we grew up here. And we talk about this a lot with the other guests and a lot with the other people, that there was a time where it was not easy to do art in this part of the world.
Yeah.
And we both grew up with that. I know, like, definitely in the worlds that we both were in, mine being definitely more of that blue collar farming, logging, mechanic work, and all those kind of things. Like, it's a little harder to get support as an art, or to do art there, and even more for myself, because like there's lots of other artists here, great, phenomenal artists that can make a living. I know for the stuff that I prefer, more theater and work and things like that, it's not really easy to make a living off of it.
Yeah.
And that kind of, and that makes things a little bit different as well too. So
For sure. What are the parts of podcasting that have like resonated with you the most or given you the most life?
oh, it's easily the interviews.
Yeah.
Like that's like, there's really no question about it. Like
Yeah.
everything else has its challenges. The interviews were never challenged.
Yes.
The interviews were the things that keep us going.
Yeah.
Because we talk with some fantastic people in
Oh,
this place.
Absolutely.
And they just they are so insightful. They are just so in tune with something that I think a lot of people have an inkling about, but they don't necessarily have the way to put it into words.
Would you like to know the 3 questions that were asked on Instagram?
Oh, we had
When
questions on Instagram.
We had
oh, yes.
3
yes.
questions.
Well, yeah,
And-
we can start with the questions
And
there.
you can choose which ones you
Yeah.
want to answer.
As long as they're not the questions from the end of the show. 'Cause
No,
I'm
no.
assuming we're going to get to those
Yes.
questions, which I'm procrastinating putting off to the very end. So.
Yes. So the first one was asking us how we met.
Oh, yeah, that was, I just finished high school. We were doing, it's like, I was trying to get involved in the local studio theater. I had just directed my first play,
Yeah.
which, side note, when you're 19 years old, to all of the 19-year-olds out there who want to get into directing, I highly advise choose a different play than a Holocaust play that focuses on children. That's my only advice. Not that I did a bad job, but it is a
No.
very intense subject matter. I never saw Another Butterfly. Wonderful show. Don't direct it when you're 19. So anyways, I just finished directing that show, or was finishing working on that show, and then there were auditions for a musical, Godspell, which for me was just like, oh, it's a musical. I don't really know anything about it, but it's a musical and it looks fun. I'm going to audition. And so, yeah, I ended up auditioning, and yeah, that's how we ended up meeting. I was 19, 18.
You were 18.
And yeah, you were...
I was 16. Yeah. I was obsessed with Godspell. And one day at school, Megan, who ended up being in the cast, was in my class. And she said, "Did you know that there's auditions for Godspell today?" And I said, "No, I did not." So during school that day, I chose a song on the fly that I could sing for auditions and went to auditions that evening. So we met during callbacks, I think.
And that was, we were good friends for for years after that. And then, during the pandemic, one thing led to another, and there's now a toddler in our lives and 2 dogs. So. So that's kind of, that's how we met and how we got together. Yeah. So, and then you said there were 3 questions?
The other one was Tiffany requesting lots of cute clips of the puppy.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
Who was not inside and probably a danger to our filming equipment.
Yes.
And the third one was that she'd like to hear how you're interested in going to school for art therapy.
Oh, yeah. Definitely, I can mention that or talk about that. As some, especially those who are close to me know, mental health has been a big struggle of mine throughout my entire life. And it's only been in about the last, 4, 5-ish years where I've really been, I hate to say it, but forced to take steps to rectify that. And throughout the entire time, I've known the importance of mental health is important, and looking after yourself is. And as I've been on my journey of mental health recovery, one thing that's really struck me is how much the arts have meaning and importance to myself. Like, I struggle a lot with the identity of an artist, with who I am and what I do, especially as somebody who, like, because of their mental health problems, that was why I ended up stepping away from acting and art. And even to this day, I still struggle a lot with the meaning behind theater and the meaning behind art and a creative expression and everything like that. And thankfully, the person I'm currently working with, we do a lot of art stuff. We do a lot of art talk. They also have a background in theater and background very similar to mine. So there's a way that we can connect. And so as I've been going through this process, I have started to understand that there can be so much that you can find out about yourself through the meaning of art. And that's kind of like low key. You can see that, like, the idea behind the podcast is to showcase and broadcast art and artists and the importance of arts in community. And for myself, because I have been currently looking into going back to do my master's degree in art therapy, partially because we need more mental health practitioners, like, just as a flat across the board. We just need more people who are willing to help out with that, and take that challenge on, because it is a big challenge. Learning about other people's lives and trying to help them navigate it is not an easy thing to do. But I feel that for myself, I want to be able to help people in a meaningful way. And I feel that art can have meaning in that. And for myself in my current journey right now, I believe that being somebody who is using art to help people with their health, and help people feel good about themselves, and help them with their problems, with their trauma, and to understand themselves better, I feel that art is probably the best way to go about doing that. And a lot of the groups that I would like to focus on, Indigenous population, children and youth, especially children and youth. I'm very adamant about that. There are some really big benefits to doing art style therapy. And so that's kind of been why I've been looking into that as an avenue of stuff. Unfortunately for me, the way I would really like to go about doing it, which would be more of a drama therapy, they just don't have online courses for that. It's really hard to do an acting class over Zoom. So the options for that, for full accredited training, would involve having to go to Montreal, and we just can't afford that right now. And there's really no way to feasibly make that work. So, but there's a lot of really good programs, and I've been in talk with quite a few people who've been a part of those programs or are leading those programs, and there's just a lot there's a lot of really good stuff out there. And it'll be a challenge. It'll be hard, but it's kind of why I think it's important to do those challenges and be able to look at the work that I do and feel like, I guess, more satisfied with it. And I think being able to combine the two biggest important things for me of art and therapy, and be able to combine them and be able to give that out to the world, be it, coming up with new ways to help people do it in a way that, if it's just researching topics and things like that, I think that's something that I'm very much looking forward to diving into when I have the energy and ambition to actually dive into that a little bit more. And that's kind of that. So thank you for whoever asked all of those questions on Instagram, for just those 3, 2.5. So I guess the big thing right now is, like, yeah, what are we going to take away from this? Because I think currently at the moment, this is going to be the last season for a little while. As I mentioned before, there's a lot, like, we are pretty exhausted, and with both personal lives and, like, in the course, work life and the podcast life, and just trying to get the ground under our feet a little more settled. So in an official capacity, this is the last episode of the podcast working with StoryHive at the moment.
Yeah.
So I guess, what are our big things that we've taken away from this podcast?
For me, there's kind of a twofold, like, just seeing that the arts are for everyone. There's not a single artist that we have talked to that hasn't said, like, anyone can be an artist, anyone can do this, you just have to try, like, and that this is something that, yeah, is for everyone. And I think for me personally, taking that to go, okay, I can have the courage to try to do some things that I wouldn't have been comfortable with before. And I think the other thing is just this great love of the land and where we are. I think last season, even more so, when we had people that were sharing stories of the Chilcotin especially, and realizing, like, we're living on the doorstep of it, and I've hardly been out there. Yeah, and just that desire to go and explore and see the real life art of the land itself, but just a different way of looking at things too. Like, we live across from Signal Point, and seeing the way the light hits things. I've never thought about light and how you would paint something as much as I have now that, yeah, we've had so many conversations with artists.
Yeah.
How about for yourself?
Oh, yeah, there is a real sense of, like, a real strength to the community of the area, and not necessarily just with artists, but with the people who support artists.
Yeah.
And, like, as I mentioned before, and as I mentioned in other past interviews, there's generally been a difficult time being an artist in a remote community like this. And even when I was on tour, passing through small communities that, still, like, it's hard to make a living with it, but there's still people trying, and still people expressing themselves. And I think just being able to find so many artists, and, like, we had so many artists that we just had on a list that I still have that list. So there's still plenty of ideas, plenty of time for content in the future, because there's still so many artists in these areas here that we just didn't get a chance to talk to. And, like, and the fact that people are so willing to do that, and still, like, no matter how hard it is, and that there are plenty of people in the community who are willing to listen, and are willing to go out to a show, are willing to just enjoy everything. Like, we just went to the Williams Lake Studio Theater's version of Sound of Music, and, like, that was a musical completely sold out, like, weeks before it even opened. And it was always so invigorating to see everybody going and seeing those shows, everybody going to these art classes, and also kind of being a bit invited, and also feeling like we can be a part of that too. Like I said, one of the big things is, like, we've become good friends with some of the people from the podcast, and we've been able to go out and experiment more, and just create, or, like, be able to create, and be able to just be a part of that community, and also realizing that they want to be a part of that community too. I think there's been a couple of individuals on the show who've been fairly new additions to the Cariboo here. And that's an expression that they have, is just, like, they want to be able to find more people. And I feel that's a really big, important thing, because in a larger city, we can have an easier time finding those groups, finding those people. I mean, we can, I think it's a different challenge, but here there's just like, I think because there's not as many people, there's a smaller population to draw on, and generally, like, life in this part of the world can be fairly tough. Like, we are still completely adherent to what the weather systems are like.
Yeah.
We've seen a huge rise of increase in natural disasters, fires, floods, just like storms, landslides, all of these things happening, and it's hard. And it's hard to be an artist when your house is on fire. Just a hot take. But still seeing that there is such a beautiful sense of community with everybody. And I think that's probably going to be the biggest takeaway, is that we are highlighting that community, and we are becoming a part of that community.
Yeah.
And to me, that is, I think, really, it's really something special.
Is there like a legacy that you hope this podcast leaves as we take a break for now?
I've kind of said it since day one. I don't want to just inspire people. I want to inspire people to do art, and I want to inspire people to know that they can do art, and not just create or do art themselves, but to participate in art. I guess that's probably better. Like, I want this podcast to inspire people to participate in art. Be it you go to a show, be it you join a painting class, be it you just take up a guitar or something and just start doing something. I think that's the biggest thing that I want. I want people to participate in artistic endeavors, because I truly, fully believe that if we embrace the arts, and if we put an emphasis on the arts, we become better versions of ourselves. And we can become empathetic, we can become stronger, we can become more confident if we can look at that. Because art is, like, any artist will tell you that art is not just something that's fluffy. Art is hard. Art asks tough, challenging questions of yourself, and questions that you can't just ignore or face forever, because eventually it does come out. If you are trying to create stuff, it does come out from that. And if you allow it to speak, if you allow the art yourself to speak through your art, it can become a safe way for you to express who you are.
Yeah. And I was also thinking that one thing the podcast has also highlighted and hopefully leaves behind is that instead of it just being a limit, that, like, you're in the Cariboo, you're not in Vancouver, you're not in Toronto, where there's a big art scene, and this limiting your ability to do art. We've seen so many artists who being here has enhanced their art and is an integral part of their art, that, like, even if you are here, you still have possibilities.
Well, and there's so much that is to be said about art being a part, or being derived from community, and not just community as well, but around, about the land that surrounds yourself. Like, we are in a wild territory. It does not take us long to start driving, and you can get lost easily. We have bears, we have deer in our backyards there. We go for a little bit of a drive, and, like, we have no cell service, and that really reflects in a lot of what what the artist talked about, artists talked about. And there is a certain way, and, like, I love this. I believe it was Mark Sheeman in episode 5 of season 1 that talked about, where we talked about the, he called it the Song of the Cariboo. I call it the Call of the Cariboo. But essentially, like, the fact that there is something that brings people here, and, like, it really makes me happy that this podcast now exists to show the rest of the world that yeah, we're here. There are artists. There are things. We aren't just a stereotypical small town. We are vibrant. We are alive. We are growing. We are just as capable as any other place in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And it sometimes is, I feel like it could get so easy to just forget that.
Yeah.
And to just forget that there are people who live here, and there are
Mm-hmm.
people who deserve to be talked about. Like there are some of the artists that we have talked to are like artists that if they were in the city, they could be making it big.
Yeah.
Their artwork is deserving to be in huge, like it deserves to be seen by many other
Mm-hmm.
people, and they've made the decision to be here.
Yeah.
And that is such a that is such a it can feel like a weird decision, but I think it kind of also talks a little bit to our culture of always being productive, always
Mm-hmm.
making something so you
Yeah.
can make money and so you can do this. And it's like, no,
Yeah.
art isn't there. I mean, art, you don't make money off of art. I didn't become an actor because I wanted to be wealthy. You do it because it's almost like you have to.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do it because it
Yeah.
is, to some people, creating is as much as a need as breathing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's that single-mindedness. Like, yeah, there are some artists who are really intense, but that's kind of who they are.
Yeah.
It's almost like they don't have a choice in that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So we're coming to the point where we probably should stop or start wrapping this off. So I know it's going to have to happen because I do it to everybody, and I'm just making sure. I know I'm going to do it to you, and then you're going to do it to me. But we've got 3 questions that we need to answer.
Especially because I dropped the ball at our premiere and didn't think to ask you them when it was the Q&A.
Yeah, which is good. I'm not going to say that. So let's start with the first question. So if you could spend a week with anybody in the world, past or present, who would it be and why?
So, and I've had the benefit of thinking of this after all of the different interviews, but it's out of the realm of possibility. But if I could have one person, it would be the baby that we miscarried last year.
I know.
And we'll pop out of the realness and the hardness.
Yeah.
Um,
All right. So next question. What is the favorite compliment that you've ever received?
My favorite compliments are often when people see me and I have felt unseen. So, I was gonna say I have an art version and I have a different not art version. That's the first thing that
Okay,
comes.
both are interlinked. Both are
mind.
interlinked.
Yeah, the art one would probably be like when we were in Godspell and Miss Bowl came and she had mostly just seen me as like an English student. I hadn't been in too many drama classes. I couldn't be in any of the shows. And I shocked her. And that was a huge compliment that I was seen. Yeah.
Sometimes those high school teachers have a little bit more influence on us than we'd like to think.
Yeah.
I only say that because it was a high school teacher that really pushed me into the arts.
Yeah.
That was Mrs. Burtonco, who came up to me after a show one time, or like after our drama classes, and said, "Yeah, you have what it takes to get into this industry."
Yeah.
And so I kind of blame her for everything, kind of don't, but
blame or credit,
blame or credit. Yeah, some days it's blame, some days it's credit. But and our final question is, what is the best piece of advice that you'd ever been given? Or is there a piece of advice that you wish you had been given?
Not to be afraid to fail. Like, I think we heard that from Julie, especially last year. And I had an art teacher in university that literally, visual arts isn't my like only area that I'm like, no, I'm not good at this. I don't do well at this. And she got us to take a piece of paper from our sketchbook, rip it open, crumple it in a ball, throw it on the ground, stomp on it, and then flatten it out and be like, okay, now you can draw on this. You can't ruin it. You've already crumpled it. You can't ruin it. So yeah, just to try, even if you're afraid of failing.
Had that teacher ever heard of fire? There's always more you can do to paper.
There is.
All right. So yeah, that's all the questions. It's time to wrap the show then. Thank you very much.
No, not so fast. Okay, now I have the pressure of trying to remember them without them written on my phone.
Oh, I cheat. I just
So
if people watch the podcast, will be able to tell.
the first question is, if you could spend a week with anyone, past or present, who would it be? And why?
It's a tough question. There's a lot of people and artists and individuals who have had a big influence on my life, and people that I look up to and am very inspired by. A lot of people would expect me to answer Shakespeare because, Shakespeare is a big part of my life. And I'm a classically trained Shakespearean actor. Jeff Buckley is another musician who I'd really admire, and same as like Freddie Mercury and just like all of these different artists. But I look at what would be the person who I would most need to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
And I am totally stealing this answer from another podcast guest, but it would be the teenager version of myself.
Mm-hmm.
I think not only would they have needed somebody there, because that's when a lot of stuff was starting to go on in my life. That's when my depression, that's when the anxieties, that's when all of that stuff started to really ramp up. And I think if I was going to listen to anybody, I might have listened to myself. And I feel that I would have liked to have told myself that, yeah, things are going to be hard. Things are going to take a lot of work, but you'll get through those things, and just keep doing what you're doing, and just keep having some faith and some belief that things are going to work out all right. And I don't know what that would have changed or what that would have helped, but I think definitely spending that time with myself as a younger individual would be important.
Yeah. All right. Question number 2. We know that you're so good at receiving compliments, so you should be excellent at answering this. What is your favorite compliment that you have ever received?
Well, there's 2. One of them I've already mentioned was Mrs. Burtoncoe telling me at a very impressionable age that I had what it took to be an actor. And that one was a big impetus for why I am currently in the position I am right now. The other biggest one, and this is the one that I think about more recently, was that when I worked in Barkerville, I worked with a lot of phenomenally, amazingly talented people. And when we were doing, it wasn't even when we were doing scene work, it was well into the season. And one of the people I was working with, we were just talking about it, and they told me that I am a very honest actor. And of course I asked, well, what do you mean by that? And they're like, they said that when you are performing and acting, the emotions that you are feeling are real. And as an actor, as a performer, that to me that meant a lot, because acting is very much, theater is very much of, like, I always butcher the quote, but it was something that my professors always said, that theater is it's like telling the truth with a lie. Because when you're watching a show, I'm not a doctor from the 1860s. I'm not a lawyer from the 1940s. I am not a baker in a mystical fairy tale land. I am still, regardless of what happens, and regardless of what costume, what makeup, what choices I make as a performer, I'm always me. I can't get rid of that. That's
Yeah.
always going to be there. And to be told that you are being honest with that, and to be told that you are being honest with the emotions that you are feeling in a scene or in a monologue or in a show is, yeah, as I said, that's something that stuck with me for quite a bit. And I always recall that fondly, and it just kind of made me feel, oh, okay, yeah, maybe I'm not too bad at this. As I say, after, like, I'd been very fortunate to have tons of opportunities thrown my way and had lots of people just give me chances and hopefully not completely disappoint them most of the time.
Final question. What is the favorite piece of advice you have been given, or advice that you wished that you had received?
I think with the favorite piece that I had been given is just play, just have fun.
Yeah.
Just, like, when you're creating, you shouldn't have to have a reason to create something. When you're participating in art, you don't have to have a reason to do that. The reason being you want to do art, you want to watch art. And I think that's something that I wish I'd been told that younger. And I'm pretty sure I actually know, you know what? I had been told that when I was younger. I just didn't necessarily listen. 'Cause when you're 20, you know everything as it is. So, but I think it was I think that if we spend more time just being able to play and be able to enjoy things, then I think we would be in a much better shape as people, as a society and a culture, as a world, just if we are having fun, as long as it's not at the expense of other people, as long as it's not at the unwilling expense of other people. Because, like, you see all the things that I do for our daughter. I have bruises everywhere. I hurt myself, and I'd be silly and, like, play around, and then I'd be like, I can't speak anymore. But, like, yeah, I think playing is something that I think is something I wish I embodied a little bit more when I was younger, and something that I'm fully starting to understand now.
Yeah. Nice.
So.
We did it.
We did. I guess normally this is the part where we talk about what our next projects are going to be. But currently right now, we don't really have much. We have a family that we're looking after. We have, we are going to take a little bit of time just to kind of get into try to solidify ourselves a little bit, carve out more of a home and a place for us here. And I think, yeah, at least that's my perspective. Maybe you do have a project. What's your projects coming up, Lucille?
I don't know. I think we have a Christmas tree to put up in a couple days. Not to timestamp this at
but
all.
Timestamped a little bit. But, so we just also want to say thank you to all of the guests that we've had on the show, to all of the support that we have gotten from the community, from the TELUS STORYHIVE program. It has been such a phenomenal opportunity to be able to have put this production on. And, like, this is not a solo production. It is so difficult to make this a solo production, and it would not have worked without all of this support, all of this love, everybody watching these episodes. And so there's a big thank you to go out to the royal you. And so thank you from my heart.
Yes.
And from just, this tiny little production in a very small part of the world. And I think, anything else you would like to add?
Nope. You said it all. I don't know.
So, thank you to everybody here. I've been your host, Rohan Keenan.
I've been your guest host, Lucille Keenan.
And we hope that you enjoy Colors of Cariboo, and we will see you on the next, we'll see you next time. So keep an eye out. We will definitely keep an eye. We've got all our social media going. Everything's still going to be available online for you to watch this. Even though we might be taking a bit of an hiatus, we've still got a couple of small plans. So just keep an eye on things. And the podcast isn't completely gone yet. So
make your own stories of wild creativity.
Make your own stories. Do your own podcast. Make your own stuff. Just make some art. That's if there's anything I want you to take from this, just participate in art.
I want you in the camera. Oh, that feels better. Start doing some painting.
Research on everybody as guests and the listeners know. And so, of course, that means I'm taking a look at different
ones told over candlelight. And there's also like a rich folklore to